right, I'm gonna give this a couple more minutes and then we're gonna get started on my project, Be Happy, which I love. It makes me happy. It's sunny and bright, and yes, there was something going on the other side. I didn't like it, so I turned it over. Actually, this piece, the line drawing, I gave to my membership group in August, and they could do with it what they want. They could manipulate it, do whatever, and I thought, I'm going to change it up and create this, which I did. So anyway, excited you guys are here to see how I painted it. Thank you. I have to say thank you so much for everyone that purchased the e-packet. Greatly appreciate that. It certainly helps me continue to do these free lessons live and bring that stuff to you guys. So again, appreciate y'all doing that. You can find, hi Super Sandy, hello Denise. You can find the e-packet for this lesson on my website. It has step-by-step instructions, step-by-step pictures. You'll have the lesson here to go back and watch, and then it will also be available on YouTube. All right. I want to move and live next door to you and Byron. I would love that, Norma Jean. I already have you saying y'all and hello. So it's Henriette. Okay. Thank you. I never want to pronounce someone's name wrong, but I do know an Henriette that I used to call Henriette and was informed it's Henriette. So, all right, guys, it is 2:04. Hi from Salem, Indiana. Rain here today, so hopefully no internet problems. Hi, Ann. So glad you're here. Well, it's kind of an overcast, it was sunny this morning day, but we're supposed to have, rain here in Middle Georgia all week from what I hear. Hi, Sharita from Tulsa. So, Sharita, are you going to OKC Painting Palooza? I hope so. Fun convention. I will be there teaching 2 classes. I have a make and take, and then I also have the booth, sans my booth mates, Deb and Tracy, who aren't going to be there this year. But I'm sure I have enough stuff to fill that booth to include DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics. So you'll be able to find those there, along with a bunch of other things. So excited about Oklahoma. Hello from Vancouver Island. Hello, Trish. I know New England Traditions Painting Convention's coming up. Wish I was going to that as well, but just a lot of things going on this month. Busy, busy month. You're looking fabulous. Great to see you. Thank you, Karen. That's the kind of weather we had last week. Oh, Linda, I'm sorry. When I was at hard wind and rain, oh my goodness. When I was at the beach, I could not have asked for better weather. When we went to the panhandle of Florida, that's when Hurricane Ida came through. And so for a couple days we were stuck inside, and then, had a couple great days of sun. But when I went to St. Simon's, from the minute I got there till the day I left, gorgeous, 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 gorgeous.
Sign up for what?
Huh?
Sharita asks, do you have a link to sign up?
Oh, so OKC Painting Palooza. If you put that into just your Google search or whatever, OKC Painting Palooza, it will come up. I do not have the link here on my page too. Barb's going to put that in the comments for you. So great convention. They've got a lot of people signed up, so looks like it's going to be a pretty full, well-attended convention, and I will have my mask on and my hand sanitizer ready, but I'm excited to be there to paint with other people in person. We canceled our plans going to NET because of COVID. Oh, Karen, I'm so sorry to hear that. Yes, I know there are several that have canceled that, and then also OKC as well because of COVID, and we are still in the middle of a pandemic, right? So, all right, guys, it's 2:07. I'm going to flip my camera around so that we can take care of some things first. The first being giveaways from the last live I did. So let me flip this down here, and I'll get this out of the way. So this is the live that we did 2 Sundays ago. And again, the line drawing and everything you can get on my website. But the video is on my YouTube channel and then also here on my Sandy Mctier Designs page. All right. So, as y'all know, because I've said it before, I have a membership group, and my Adventures of Art and Art Journaling membership group is going to officially open on October 22nd. However, don't tell the boss, but if you go to my website and you click on the membership tab and you go to the bottom, you'll see that the current pricing is up for members if you want to join now, unofficially, before the doors officially open on the 22nd. So we have fun. We create in our journal, just like the page I shared with you guys 2 weeks ago that I had done. We do technique lessons. We did water drops, Chinese lanterns. We did a whole technique class on backgrounds, wood grain, patina. That was in August. So I have a couple Zoom classes coming up. And while we create primarily in our art journal, it's always, I always encourage to take it outside the art journal, put it on canvas, put it on fabric, put it on glass, whatever it is that you like to paint on, so that it doesn't just stay here. But this is a great place to have everything together in a collective spot so that you can create and have fun and play around with techniques. And yeah, so again, you can go to my website for more information about that. So we had 3 giveaways from the last live I did. And for the 2 Stampendous stamps, the winner of those, Marty Sue Mace. So, Marty, if you will message me, you can private message me here, you can email me, sandymctierdesigns@aol.com, or you can go to my website and hit the contact button. Send me your mailing address, and I will get those out to you tomorrow. Okay? And then the other giveaway we had was for some stencils. This is M Square, which is Mctier. And so for those stencils, the winner of that drawing is Susan Kaltenbach. Kaltenbach. So Susan, again, message me, contact me, DM me your mailing address, and I will get that sent out to you. And then finally, we have my favorite go-to brushes, Dynasty. These are black gold angle brushes. You have a 1/4 inch, 3/8, and a 1/2 inch, 3 sizes I use all the time. And the winner of that is Connie Lanigan. So Connie, again, message me your mailing address. So the Be Happy plaque. Again, started this as a line drawing for my membership group in August and decided to adapt it. So we're going to kind of start to finish. I'm going to show you how I did the background. Let's move that out of the way. Super simple. I went ahead and did the, this is just on a wood, well, hello. It's on the back of my springtime wreath. So if you painted that with me and you have this surface, you can put your Be Happy on the other side, okay? But the first thing I did was I did put some multi-purpose sealer. I'm gonna grab it, it's right behind me. So I just did a light base coat of the multi-purpose sealer, let it completely dry. And then I took my 3/4 flat brush and I just slip-slapped the paint on. So basically, crisscross motion. You can see those brush strokes, and that's what I was going for. Okay, that's gonna add some texture into that background. Instead of just base coating the entire thing, you know, solid with no brush strokes, I wanted those brush strokes to show. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do is pick up one of my favorite colors. Let me find it here. Saffron yellow. Okay, so this is an old label. Could I find my new bottle? No, let me zoom in just a little. Let that focus for a second. Okay, so saffron yellow. I'm gonna go ahead and put some of that on my palette. I might need a little bit more than that. Now, I'm not going to use a brush. I'm going to use a a paper towel. So I'm just going to take, I like Viva paper towels. They're nice and soft. I'm just going to kind of wad it up. I am going to get my surface a little bit wet. So I'm just going to wet that 3/4, and I'm just going to give it a little bit. You could mist it with a little water if you wanted to. I just want this to move around. And what is on here right now is just Decorative Americana white. After I sealed it, painted white right on top, slip slap motion. Okay. Now, I'm going to get my paper towel loaded with some of that saffron yellow. And I'm just going to start soft circular motion, kind of pushing that paint around. And what I love, love, love about that white paint and the way I put it on is that you see that texture underneath that transparent yellow. Okay, so I want to get that on. And it's going to be darker in areas, lighter in areas. It's exactly what I'm going for. Okay. Hi guys, see lots of names popping up. Welcome, welcome. So glad you joined us today. Barb's in the comments. If you have any questions at all, make sure you write them and she will answer. Okay, so now what I did is I took my paper towel. Okay, so I flipped my paper towel around. If doing this in the multimedia, do you basically follow the same instructions? Do you need to seal or just gesso? Linda Martin, you can just use some, gesso if you want to. I probably, depending, this is a little bit thin and I didn't want it to warp, so it doesn't hurt to put a little bit of that multi-purpose sealer on it, okay? And of course, my favorite go-to paint is the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics. I was going to do this entire project with that, but at the time, the paints weren't readily available. Now DecoArt is making them, and like I said, if you're going to OKC, I'm going to have the line with me at OKC Painting Palooza in my booth, but I'm also going to have it on my website soon. Okay, my favorite go-to paint. Now I'm going to take my paper towel and just wipe up that saffron yellow, just kind of get that out of the way. But now I have my background. It's quite bright, right? But let me hold it up so that you can see all that texture in the background just from the brush strokes of putting that white paint on. Okay. Now what I did was put the pattern on. So the pattern comes with a line drawing. I did use the M219 honeycomb stencil. I did put it in the line drawing for you as well though. So if you don't have a honeycomb stencil, you have a line drawing, so much easier with the stencil, and I'll show you why. Okay, so with the line drawing, you have your words, and I cut those so that I can line them up and put them where I want them, okay? And then I also put on the line drawing, I put a B and an H. So if you wanted to line it up exactly where I have mine, you certainly can. Let me tell you too, because this surface is a 10 by 10. So of course it gets cut off a little bit here, and I just extended that right to the top. So you just have to flip that to, go on to your section right down here. All right, for the line drawing. So once you have that in place, and you are going to outline your design, what comes in super handy with the honeycomb stencil is, as I'm drawing these out, is to line up the stencil and use that so that my lines are straight instead of having to use a ruler. All right. Now, part of that, one of our giveaways is the 3 pen pack, the Uniball Signo Japanese ink. So it has like a 0.38 fine tip to that pen. And so you're just going to come in and go right around those lines for the honeycomb, right around that stencil. Do the rest of your line drawing. and you end up with your outline, okay? Now, once everything is on and you have your pattern on, your words on, you're going to take the stencil and line it right back up. And this time, I'm going to take the fine tip of an Identipen. Okay, there are a couple of pins you can use. You can use an Identipen, which has a fine tip on it. Okay, see, it's double-ended. If you like to use the fine tip Sharpie markers, it hopefully won't bleed. It's not my go-to. I do like the fine tip on the Identipen. But basically, everything's going to be outlined with the fine tip of the Identipen. All right, so again, you line it up. You go around the lines right inside that stencil so that you have it outlined. Now, notice on this one, compared to this one and how much more honeycomb there is. All right, oh, I can't wait to share this with you guys. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna line this up. Now, I'm not one that tapes a lot. I usually just wing it, but I am gonna tape this in place. And I'm gonna move my chair so I can stand up because I can't see what I'm doing from an angle, just like that. Okay, we're gonna tape that in place. Okay, so let me move my chair. Let me remind you one more time too. Once you get the line drawing on, the Factus eraser is fantastic for going back and erasing all of those transfer lines that you might have left on your piece, okay? And we'll talk about the leaf color and stuff like that later. But let's come down here to our honeycomb. I'm gonna line that up. And so the only honeycomb that's outlined is the one that's on the pattern, okay? And you can use a small stencil brush. So a 5/8, this is a 1/2. You can also use a 1/4 inch stencil brush. This one will be really good for getting around those edges. We're gonna put out some asphaltum. Let's see if I have one. There we go. Some asphaltum. So let's get that out. You don't need a lot. And then some quinacridone gold. I did use this in the media line. If you don't have this, you can also use burnt sienna, but look at the difference. This has a little bit more of a red tone to it. It's gorgeous. But you can add a little alizarin crimson to this, or you can just use it as burnt sienna. Okay, I'm gonna use the quinacridone gold. Okay, so I have that lined up. I'm gonna load up my stencil brush with some asphaltum, load it up. Come over to the paper towel, wipe almost all of it off. You want your paper towel to be dry. I feel a wet right there, so I'm gonna make sure that my stencil brush is not wet. It's dry when I started. And I'm gonna come in here and I'm going to try and stencil just around the edge of that honeycomb area. So let me zoom in so you can see even closer that I'm not doing the whole space. I'm just going around the edge of that mylar. Don't need any on my daisy. Well, you can see why I didn't base coat the daisies in, right? So, and the leaves are gonna get some of this color on there too, and that's quite all right. So I'm gonna reload with some asphaltum, and I'm going to probably not tape that every time. Line this back up. And again, right around those honeycomb sections that have the outline first. Let's come down here, line it up. Soft circular motion, and again, I'm just kind of going right along the edge of that honeycomb shape. If you get it on the leaf or the daisy or the bee, don't worry. Load it right back up, line it up, load it up, wipe it off. really, really well. Let's see if there's not one there. Okay, and we're just going to keep moving. Hello, how about if I get on camera? Okay, let's go ahead and get this one. Again, line that up. So having that outlined is going to help you see where, which honeycombs you're doing this for. Sometimes I have to lift it up, make sure I'm not doing one that's not there. Come back up to this one. Again, this is M219 honeycomb. It is available, like I said, on my website and also Tracy Moreau's website. So M Square, Moreau Mctier. You can find the M Square line on either of our websites. Okay, now, so did you notice I have the stencil this way for those sections? This one I decided to turn it just to have them going a different direction. Since it was separated with the flowers and everything, it just went and it flowed nicely. So again, right over those leaves and everything. They're just kind of in the way right now. Lift that up. All right, now let's have some fun. So we're going to come right back up here. I'm going to put my original, not that the honeycomb has to go exactly in the same spot, but I'm going to line this back up and then I'm going to shift it. So let's shift it that way. Okay. So I'm going to come over here and do almost like a little ghost stenciling. I don't have a lot of color. Load it up, wipe it off. And what I mean by a little ghost stenciling is see that it's not outlined, but you can see some of that honeycomb. I just love that look. And again, line it up so that you know that your honeycomb is going to be straight. And just do little pieces and parts of that honeycomb design. So I know I have some coming right out here. And I'm not going for full coverage of that shape. Just a little. If I get a half of it, 3/4 of it, good to go. Okay, just like that. So you get that nice, soft, subtle. I could even come in here and extend some out here. Let's bring it out just a little bit. I just wanted it to end on different planes. I didn't want there to be like it all ending on the same line with those honeycomb shapes. So see how it just kind of softly fades right into nothing. That's what we're going for. Okay, a little bit more, and our words are going to go there, so we're not going to see much of that, but we see some, so just go right over it. And I'm still using the asphaltum. Haven't switched yet, but will in a second to that nice golden brown color. Okay, so let's come down here. And over here, I did have it go right off the end. Now to help me line it up, I'm going to scooch this out of the way so I don't get it into the paint. You can kind of line it up against with that one. Line it up with that one so that you can at least, again, keep them in line with where they would naturally fall, using that as your guide. Okay, a little bit more. Oops, too much paint. Hello. Wipe it off. We just want it nice and soft and airy. Now down here I can't see that. Well, I could line it up right there. I'm just going to do a little here, a little there. Okay, now let's move over here. Come to our midsection area, line that up. Now it's not going to line up with that one very well, so I'm going to still go right in between with just a little soft touch along those edges and honeycombs. Okay, just like that. Now, let's see. We have, oh, I forgot those. Hello. I forgot that completely. Let's come in here, go right around that edge, and then just soft little stencil around there. And then I have a little down here. And remember, you have to line it up with the shape and the way that I turned it down here. Little asphaltum, wipe it off, line it up, soft touch. I love that unevenness. It's very haphazard and not exact. I think just adds a nice soft touch to that background. Okay, let me zoom out just a little so you can get that whole effect on that background. Okay, fun, huh? All right. Late and can't stay. Hi, Betty. See you later. All right, so I'm going to wipe off. Wipe off, wipe off, wipe off. So do I, Shirley. So do I. All right, let's come back up to the top. And this time I want to introduce some of that quinacridone gold or burnt sienna if that's what you have. But I don't want too much. So I'm going to come right back up here on everything. The ones I have outlined and the ghost ones that I've done. Pick up a little bit of the quinacridone gold. Wipe it off. It's funny, I can hear Barb every now and then over here a little chuckle.
Oh, Donna Shepherd said, I love the way you talk through what you are thinking.
Thank you.
And Karen Wilson agrees.
Okay, so see that nice golden brown and the difference it makes from there to there with just the slightest touch of paint. Absolutely love that effect. And again, we'll line up and get some of these ghost. I call them ghost stencil because it's a very faint, not exact, little hint of color. Little quinacridone gold. Okay. Let's come in here. Add a little bit more. You get too much, don't be afraid to use those fingers. Y'all know how much I love to use my fingers when I paint. I'm going to keep my stencil the same direction. Come right back up here. Put some of that quinacridone gold. The fluid acrylics are highly pigmented, guys. They've got so much pigment and beautiful color. So when you go to get them, which I hope you will, don't be, what's the word? Don't be
Frightened. Scared of the price.
Don't be scared. Don't be afraid of the price tag, because when we buy a 2-ounce bottle of Americana acrylic or whatever acrylic paint you use, and it is $1.87 at Hobby Lobby or $1.99 or whatever, you know, if we're paying $3, $4, $6, $7 for a thing of paint, let me just tell you, this paint goes a long way because you're using just a little. You see how little I'm putting on my brush and how much pigment and beautiful color is coming off. So it will last you, and I just can't say enough about it because it's my favorite go-to paint. So I love all of my DecoArt products, but I'm pretty partial to this paint. So I love layering when I paint, and this paint is ideal for that because it's primarily transparent, and so pretty. Now, this is what I was talking about. See how I kind of have a little bit of a defined line going on there. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm just going to softly bring some of that paint right along that edge. And if I want to take some away, I can use a baby wipe. Kind of just soften out that edge so it's not exact. Okay. Now, again, look at the difference. That quinacridone gold or burnt sienna without it. So just brings such a golden, pretty tone to that background. That was actually kind of quite bright, right? With that saffron yellow. Again, use your finger, rub it out if it's too much. You want to make sure you wipe off enough. Come over here. I'm going over those leaves and everything. They're kind of in the way right now. All right, so gone there. Now let's get over here, finish this off. And again, I'm going to turn that stencil.
Molly Ann says Sandy must have stock in a baby wipes company.
Let me tell you, when I wish I had stock in a baby wipes company was when my kids were 1, 2, and 3 years old. Now they are 25, 26, and 27 years old. So 3 kids under the age of 3, all 15 months apart to the day. That's when I would have loved to have had stock in baby wipes. However, like Molly Ann said, I think I probably use just as many baby wipes now as I did when they were kids, if not more. It's just a great tool to have. And speaking of, my preferred baby wipe is Huggies, even when my kids were little. I just thought it was the best wipe for their little tush. And I don't have wipes that have lotion in them, fragrance, or alcohol. The only time I put alcohol in my baby wipes is when I am painting on glass. Okay. Now, how much easier did it make doing that honeycomb with that stencil, right? And I think in the M Square line, we have 2 or 3 different honeycomb or bee stencils in that line. So, all right. So I'm going to move that to the side. And like I mentioned, if you have anywhere you want to take a little bit off, you can just kind of rub it out with a baby wipe. It's so softly put on there that, see how easy it comes off? So if you don't want a whole honeycomb shape, you just want a quarter of it or half, wipe it off with a baby wipe. All right, let's come down here. Okay, so the leaves, I base coated 1 coat with Hauser light green because I knew I was going to get into them. I didn't sit there and bother with painting 2nd coat, 3rd coat if it needed it. And then also the daisies are going to be white. So let's go ahead and paint in our leaves with Hauser light green. I'm going to use probably like a number 8 and maybe a number 5 or 6 flat. I love my flat brushes. So number 6 flat just to get those smaller little leaves. And I'm going to load that brush up. Let me come to my palette so you can see. I'm going to pull that paint out of the way of the puddle, load it up on both sides. And I'm just going to paint that in. Okay, now if I get it on the daisy, quite all right. Not the end of the world, because, I'll move that out of the way. We're going to paint the daisies white, so no big deal. Get those tiny little leaves. Now these little scroll tendrils, easier to do with a liner brush. So I'm just going to load up. This is what, like a 0 round. So almost like a liner brush. You can use a rigger, a liner brush, just easier to get into this tiny little space. Okay, I'll rinse that out. And I'm going to move that out of the way. Okay, so I think 2 coats is easily going to do it. I didn't base coat these with white first because I loved the yellow in the background. If it were a dark color, let's say black, I definitely would have base coated these leaves in with either a warm white or a white. But because I love to paint in layers, if any of that yellow shows through, it's perfect. I will switch to my liner and do that little tendril, but I think I'm going to wait and kind of assembly line them all at the same time. So, Hauser light green. And everything, like I said, once I got the line drawing on and I outlined everything, I'm going over the lines. Those are going to kind of disappear for a while, and I will show you how I brought them back. Or if you decide that you don't want those lines or anything outlined, you do not have to outline. So my thing's going to come up with a, there. I thought my computer was about to restart. You don't have to outline everything. If you don't want that black outline, then by all means, you don't have to outline it once you've transferred the pattern on. Okay, it certainly helps you keep the line drawing so that you can see where it is. And I like the outlined look. So,
question
okay.
that I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
This is from
Hopefully I do.
Henrietta.
Okay.
Henry says you use the gray silicone mat as a palette. Can you put a plastic foil over it and use the leftover the next day, like we do?
Oh, so yes. So I'm using, this is a Richardson gray palette paper. You can put saran wrap or, kitchen wrap over it and use it the next day. Sometimes what helps too is if underneath you put a wet paper towel and then you stick this on top of the wet paper towel, put the plastic wrap over everything.
What about on your mat?
That will also help. On my plastic mat, I do not leave the paint. Well, let me say that again. I do leave the paint. And if I had that puddle sitting right here and we were done for the day, I'd leave it. The next day I can come in and I can just peel it right off. Okay? But if I know that I'm going to keep my paint or I need to keep my paint for the next day or for later in the day, I'll put it on a disposable palette paper, and I prefer gray to white. So I just feel like you see your truer colors on that gray palette. So, all right, let's come back to our little liner brush and get these painted in. Alrighty, so we have our green leaves painted in with Hauser Light Green. That's the second coat that I've done. So I use a Stays-On ink pad. I'm using one of my favorite stamps that I've used, oh my gosh, what would you say, Barb, 6 years? Like I use this on everything, right? Yeah. So Vintage Note. And then in the grunge stamp set, they've got some great font, script stamps, little scroll. Love this one. I used that on the dragonfly wings that we did several months ago. But this little stamp right here, we're going to use that little postage stamp, cancellation stamp, okay? So I'm going to have both of those handy. And I'm going to do one coat of white on my daisies first. And then while that's drying, we will come over and do our stamping, just so that I can get those set up and drying. It might take 2 coats. It might just take 1. Because to be honest with you, if I have some yellow showing through, I'm not too fussed about that. All right, so I'm going to load up. Again, I'm using a number 6 flat. You can use an 8 flat. And I'm going to, so this is my flat brush, has 2 sides, that side and that side, and 2 corners, right? So if you sit on the corner, push, push, pull, lift, push, pull, lift. You'll get a nice, I have too much water in my brush. I don't have a ton of paint, but you'll be able to paint in that daisy stroke pretty quickly. Not putting a lot of pressure because I don't want it to be on Miracle Grow. It will go outside those lines if I push too much So I'm just a little pressure, push, pull, slide to the center. Now here where it goes underneath that leaf, just be a little bit more careful where it's right up underneath that leaf. Okay, but starting at the tip, push, pull, lift. Again, sit on the corner. Oops, need to go over that one again. And when you sit on the corner, the tip of that brush rounds out, giving you a nice round tip to that petal. One of my least favorite brushes is a filbert. You could use a filbert if you like a filbert brush. It'll give you that nice round tip. I'm just pretty partial to flats. So I'm going to ask Barb on that panel over there. I don't know if it's the second or third or fourth light switch, but will you hit that fan? I don't know if I just broke out in a massive hot flash or if it's hot in here. But I need some air. Thank you.
Does the light come on too?
Just the fans. Thank you. Whew. Okay, and again, next to that leaf, just go up with the chisel edge so that you don't get much on that leaf. If you get some, it's quite all right. Just wipe it off. Again, personal preference. You do not have to outline them, but I do come back after, at the very end, I'm going to show you how to give those a little decorative outline. I used to use the fine tip of the Identipen for that, but am hooked on these Uniball Japanese ink Signo pens. Again, I carry those. I love how thin they are and how well they go on top of the paint. Problem is they're not permanent. They will move with water. So I will explain to you, and I'll have Barb remind me at the end how I set it so that it doesn't go anywhere. Okay. Oh, thank you for putting those fans on. Whew, what a difference. Yep, just went right over that leaf. Okay, and again, turn it how you need to. We're gonna go ahead and put one coat on. I can already tell that I'm gonna put a second coat on. And I'm just using white. You could use warm white. You could use even a little bit of gray if you wanted to get that base. Since I outlined them at the end, I didn't do a whole bunch of shading. I'm gonna show you some, but I didn't sit there and shade everything because the pen helped outline and separate. So again, this is almost the same width as that number 6 flat that I'm using. Number 4 flat would be just as fine. You would just put a little bit more pressure. And I'm just pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. Nothing too hard. Just a little bit of pressure. Okay. Let's come down here. Let's go right over those leaves. And we're just going to do one coat. We'll do the stamping. We'll take care of the leaves. Then we'll come back in and take care of the flowers because, again, they're kind of in the way. So they're probably going to get some of the color of the leaf on there. But basically, that's them out painted with one coat of white. All right. Hello, Denise. So good to see you on. I do that with fans too and have chap lips. Yes, Susan Malone, I know exactly what you mean. So, stamps. Lost my train of thought there for a second. Stamp stays on ink. Love it. Not going to move. You can use paint. I'm going to use my ink pad. And I just kind of put this here and there, but not everywhere. So let me show you the original again. I have some here, here, you know, along the edges, underneath the writing. So that's why we're going to go ahead and do that now. And get some of that vintage note on there. Now I'm kind of rubbing, I turn my stamp over and I'm just rubbing this back and forth. You can also get refill. I don't think I have it. Do I have it right here? I do. So if you have one, you can get these on Amazon. The Stays On refill to refill your ink pad so that you don't have to have 20 ink pads laying around like I do. Okay, now what I want to do is I don't want that harsh, especially if it's, you know, freshly inked ink pad. So I'm going to take some of that ink off using that Post-it note. And I'm just going to lay it and press. Now I'm not laying the whole thing. Do you see how I took half of it off? And then I can come over here and put some there. I'm just pressing it here and there, but not everywhere. Get a little more ink. Take a little off. I like it when it goes over things, so, oops. So when we're done, if you wanted to add something over a leaf, by all means, you could. Let's get some there. Down there. Oop, see, did not tap that off on my Post-it note. So see, it's a little bit darker. So if that happens, take a baby wipe, kind of quick, or a paper towel, and it will take some of that down for you. The only way to get Stays On ink off too, like if I didn't like that at all at the bottom, I could take some hand sanitizer and get it off. The only thing is it's going to take it right down to the wood, so I'd have to base coat everything over again. So I just need to remember to use my Post-it notes or a scrap piece of paper to take some of that ink off because I don't want it to be too dark. Okay. Put some there, and a little there. Okay, I think I want a little more there. And I'm also keeping my vintage note straight. I'm not turning it. You can if you want your script to go, but I want mine to go left to right, okay? I don't want the script to go all different directions. Now let's do our little cancellation. And it does have words on it, so you know if you wanted to line it up. So if it goes off opposite directions or here and there, I really don't care about this one, that it has to be straight like that every single time. But I want to get some of that ink off. And I like to take it off the edge. We'll put one over here, below happy. Again, load it up, tap it off on my Post-it note there. Put one there. Off the edge. Try and see where else I have one, right there. It kind of looks like a lot until you get done, and then you barely even see these. They just kind of go right into that background. Okay, so I put one here, there, there, under happy over here on the right, a little over here, one there, and I think that's it. I think that's it, and we're good to go. Okay, stamps. Real quick, let me tell you, you can rinse them off. I like to take a little hand sanitizer and one of my soft, so my Stencil Pro is a soft enough stencil brush that I can come in. They have stamp cleaner as well, but I'll just kind of get that ink off. I don't do it all the time, I will admit, a little bad that way. But that's not a stiff enough bristle that it's going to ruin my image, my stamp. And then pat it off on a paper towel. And I still wash it off with water because you don't want the hand sanitizer to make that rubber bit brittle. It will dry it out, okay? So I'm just gonna pop those right into my water basin until I can take care of that. All righty. Let's get the lid back on here. Make sure that's dry. All right. Get on camera, move these out of the way. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with our leaves. And I'm going to get out some plantation pine. Move my palette so that you guys can see it. Plantation pine. This is that an old one? Yep, that's an old one. I'm like at the bottom of the barrel here with my plantation pine. This one's full. This one's probably about to there. So I hope I get some in soon because it's my favorite go-to green. Okay, and then also some Payne's Gray. And I'm using Payne's Gray in the media line, but you can also use Payne's Gray in the Americana line. Okay. Put some of that out. And we're just going to take care of our shading right now. So I'm going to use a 3/8 angle. I'm going to get some moisture in that brush. So we're going to keep a little bit of water in our brush. All right. And let me move that out of the way. And zoom in so that you can see a little. Okay. You'll have to let me know, Barb, if that's zoomed in enough. Okay, so on an angle brush, we have the toe and the heel. The toe's that longer part, the heel's the shorter part.
Come in a little bit more.
Okay. She said a little more. So let me lift my palette and we'll slide that right up underneath. Okay, and I might have to lift it up because just to get that brush in there. So on the toe, a little Payne's Gray, a little plantation pine. We're going to work that right into our brush. I'm going to pick up more plantation pine, work that in. So see how I'm keeping it on my palette over here on the right-hand side of the screen. I have that on the toe only. I'm going to flip it over, work that in on the toe. Okay, so right down here where it meets the flower, I'm just going to pat in a little bit, float in that color. Okay, can you see that? Is that... Okay, now I can soften that if I want to with a mop brush. This is an IPC medium soft flat top. And you can just kind of soften that. I'm not going down here where the heavy color is. I'm only going right where it finished and met that leaf color. Okay, now I'm going to turn that. Do the same thing on that leaf right there, just along that base. Little plantation pine, little Payne's Gray. I'm going to float some of that color along this darker side of the leaf. And if you're like, well, what's the darker side of the leaf? Oops, hello. So my darker side of the leaf, if my light's kind of coming this way, that top part is going to be brighter. Okay, so see the difference already? How just putting that dark in, that's already light. So it's giving my leaf a little bit of shape already. Now when we get into these, it's going to be a little tricky. We're going to switch to a 1/4 inch angle and I'm going to do them all at the same time so that we don't have to keep switching brushes. But plantation pine, Payne's Gray on the toe of the brush only. I'm going to float that color down the darker side of that leaf. So on this one, on that left side. Okay, just kind of soften that out. And then right above those petals, right where these two leaves meet, right here. Okay, just like that. And again, if that petal is in the way, just go over it. Okay, I'm just going to soften that with that mop.
Henriette said that if you love the Stays On Jet Black, but you'd like to go a little softer than black, the Timber Brown by Stays On is also awesome.
Oh, thank you, Henriette. I'll have to check into that. I've not seen that color. Someone just introduced recently to the gold, that there's metallic stays on ink pads. So I will have to, huh?
Don't tell me that.
I know. So I will have to order that when I reorder my my metallic ones. Okay, so that got a little too dark. So I'm just gonna soften it. Get some of that Payne's gray off. It's a little too much. I'm gonna have to move my palette out of the way. I will lift it up if I have to show you guys, but I have such a glare with it down that I can't see where I'm putting paint. So I'm gonna slightly lift it so that you can see it and that I can see it. Okay. Mo better. All right. So we're gonna have a little bit of that color floated right along that darker side of the leaf, right above those petals. Kind of soften that out. Again, use a little mop if you need to. I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, and I have some dampness in my brush, so a little bit of water to get that to move. Little plantation pine, tiny touch of Payne's gray. I'm going to put that at the base of those smaller leaves. Okay, just like that. Don't be afraid to touch it with your finger. Kind of soften it out. All righty. Now, let's separate those a little bit better. So a little plantation pine, tiny touch of Payne's gray. I'm going to turn that sideways. I do want to get right down in there and float that color on just a little bit better. There we go. See how those stand apart now? Okay, so right down here, go right over that petal, bring that down, soft, soft, soft. Again, petals in the way, just go over it. Okay. And on that one, I can see quite a bit of that background. I'm not too worried about it because we're going to put some light color on there. But if you can see too much of your background, you know, it might require another coat of that Hauser light on your leaf base coat. See how that dragged? If it's dragging, you need a little moisture in your brush. So a little water. Soften out. And I will tell you, some days are better than others on floating. I have great days and I have days where it's like, yeah, maybe not, maybe not today. But try not to overthink it or that you have to lay it in one little stroke. I personally like to pat my floats on. I have a hair right there. I like the softness it gives. And I have a little brush hair right there. I'm going to leave it because if I go into there right now, I'm going to mess up that float. Whereas when it's dry, it's just going to lift right out. Now I'll tell you, it's going to aggravate me until I lift it out because I'm a little OCD that way. But I have to leave it alone and move on. Okay, let's come down here. And again, just look at the difference that makes, right? Look at the difference between those leaves and the leaves that I haven't done yet. Okay, so little plantation pine, little Payne's gray. Okay, so I have a little bit at the base of that small leaf. There. Oops, forgot these over here. Am I on camera? I'm on camera. Okay. A little bit here. Oh my goodness, I feel so much better with those fans on. I have to tell you guys, I thought I was going to spontaneously combust from this massive heat flash, goodness gracious, hot flash that I just had. I thought they were gone. Ugh. Okay. I could switch to my 1/4 inch, but I'm being a little lazy. So if you find that you're having a hard time getting into a space or a spot with the 3/8 or a 1/2 inch angle, there's nothing wrong with changing the brush size. Okay. So we will put that in. Okay, now let's take care of our stems. So let's come right back up here. I'm gonna do that same color combination, plantation pine, tiny, tiny touch of Payne's Gray. I'm gonna start, oops, a little too much. Start at the top, and I'm gonna paint in that center vein. Let's see, right there. See that? Okay, so let me show you here. I have the toe. I'm gonna lay it. I don't want that as thick there. And get that center vein in. Doesn't matter if you start at the bottom or at the top. I just feel like I have a little more control when I start at the tip of that leaf. So plantation pine. Come to my palette so I can show you. Plantation pine on the toe, tiny touch of Payne's Gray. I'm in my same little runway here, but see how my color migrated? So I'm gonna start over here. I don't care that there's that much plantation pine on the left side, but I wanna keep that Payne's Gray definitely on the toe only, okay? And we are going to just lay in those stems right in the center. Need a little bit of moisture in my brush. Dragging, dragging, dragging. Okay, and lay in those center veins. This one needs a little help. Hello, that's so ugly. Let's wipe that off.
I have your to-do list.
Just threw that right in my water basin. Give that a little bit of a wave there. Okay, now those are the bigger leaves. Let's switch to the smaller angle. Which, did I grab one out? I did not. So I've got to grab one from over here, and let's hope that there is one. Or I'll be sending Barb across the way to grab me one. Oh, there is. I see it, I see it. And this is kind of what started this, like when I did my challenge for my membership group in August. It was August, right, Barb, that I did this? I think so. But I have a YouTube video on this little tag that I did. No, it must have been, that tag must have been in
July, maybe.
April, because that's when I opened my membership group up. So that tag I did in April, and then in July did that for my membership group. Little line drawing that is this. Okay, smaller brush. So I have a 1/4 inch angle. See, it has the same toe and heel. I put a little bit of plantation pine on there, a little bit of Payne's Gray. I'm just going to put in some of those little.
I have a question.
All right.
Karen Wilson says, I thought we were previously told not to take the vein line to the tip. Did I misunderstand?
No, let me show you. So see how mine doesn't go all the way to the very tip, but when I come back and I put in my highlight, it's going to take some of that away as well. So don't get super hung up on that. See that one, it pauses just before the tip. That one got too dark, so that's going to get some light. Okay. Have too much paint on there. Alrighty, come down here to these little ones. Let's get a little bit of center vein in. My brush is flat. Just kind of sliding that on. Oh, so dry now. You know why it's dry.
Fans on.
because the fans are on, but I have to have them on or I'm going to be
Combusting.
dripping sweat on this piece. Oop, too low. See how easy it is just to wipe it off? All right, so we've got all of our little ones done. Now I'm going to take that same color. So plantation pine, little bit of Payne's gray. Let's come up here to our little, what did I call these on the, I think in the packet I called them scroll tendrils. I don't know why. They're just little decorative things that I drew. I like that it gives it a little movement, gives it a little softness. So,
That's what you called them.
huh?
That's what you called
That's
them.
what I called them? Okay, great. But I'm just putting a little bit of this coloring in just to give it a little bit variation in color, a little shadow, like that. Let's pull that down, okay? So on this back side, some of that plantation pine, little bit of Payne's gray. On this little flip, little on that flip right there, okay? Plantation pine, little bit of Payne's gray. Let's do the same thing. Come over here and a little bit of water on my brush, just a touch. Slide that. Okay, just like that. So see, just, I don't know. I think it just makes it look more dimensional, takes it from being just flat to being pretty and decorative. We'll get around that little daisy there. Along that bottom side. Okay, and we'll add a little highlight to those too when we come back and add the highlight on the leaves. So, a little along the base. And this one goes right up into that daisy. So a little up into there. Alrighty. So let's rinse that brush out. I'm looking at, so let me show you real quick on something that doesn't have any paint on it at all, just so that you can see. Okay, now let's go to our highlight. So we're gonna get out some sour apple. So sour apple, get a little bit of that out. I also used on here, I can't remember what project it was, sometime early last year. It might have been my bird nest or something. I don't know. But I used neon. I used like neon green or something. Well, I used neon yellow for this, and I scraped the bottom of the barrel to get my neon. So I didn't have any more, but I do have the Crafters neon acrylic. So I'm going to put a little bit of that out. You could use Americana, multi-purpose, satin, you know, whatever. So I just, I was out of the other. Okay, so we have sour apple, little bit of neon. I'm going to get some cadmium yellow. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and rinse out my 3/8 angle brush. Dry that off, get a little bit of moisture in it. So I'm going to come to my palette here, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of sour apple on the toe only, tiny touch of white. Come to the side of your white. Don't go to the center of your puddle, because then you can contaminate everything. So I'm going to get a little bit of sour apple, a little bit of white, and then right along that highlighted side of your leaf, we're going to float that color on. Okay, so float that color. You can use the heel to soften that, or again, you can come back with your mop brush, kind of soften that out. Okay, see how pretty? I love that color. Green apple, sour apple, tiny touch of white. Float some of that color on. Okay, I'm going to assembly line these so that things can kind of dry as we move on. So I'm just doing that highlighted part. Now here's a little tricky. I'm just going to swipe the brush. I'm just going to swipe the brush where I think it should be a little bit brighter on those little scrolls. Okay, for the tiny leaves, tiny little stroke, sour apple, tiny touch of white. Oops, a little too much white. And sometimes if I get it too light, I'll leave it and come back when it's dry and just put a little sour apple over it. Okay, it looks super pretty when you do that. These just get a little bit of a highlight. Alrighty. Little swipe of color on that tendril. Scroll. What did I call it, Barb? A scroll tendril?
Yes, scroll tendril.
Get a little highlight there. So see, I think it was Nancy that mentioned about the, that vein going up. I don't go, but if I do go too far, I'm always starting my highlight right back up here. It will take away a little bit of that stem. So it's a great way to fix that as well, if you get that. But don't get so hung up on something like that. Okay, let's move on. See how white that one is, how light that one is? I want to change this one because I like that bright from that sour apple. Okay. Come down here. A little bright on there. A little bit of moisture. See how that's dragging? Hi, Soraya. Good to see you on. Okay, a little highlight there. You don't want to leave any kind of a line. So if you're starting to get any kind of a line, come back in with your little mop brush or whatever and soften that out. I'm going to keep over here with these big leaves. And notice how I'm coming from just above the bottom. I'll show you when I reload my brush. A little more sour apple on it. Okay, so the heel has nothing on it. So I'm going to put that in the dark section. And I'm just going to swipe that color right along that edge. And that's going to keep, I don't want to come right down here with the light color. I want to keep that dark at the base and just brighten that side of the leaf. Okay, let's turn that. Again, not worry if it's a little too white, because I'll come back and put some sour apple on there. Alrighty, sorry, keep turning it. I'm gonna give you guys whiplash. Put a little highlight, that small leaf, a little on that tendril. Like I said, you can switch to, and I'm gonna switch to my 1/4 inch for these. A little too big of a brush.
Bonnie wants to know if we're gonna bring those brushes to Palooza.
I'm bringing all the brushes I have. So angles, stencil brush, mezzaluna. Alrighty, so I think I've gotten all the littles except this one. Again, I want to keep it a little dark at the base. Little highlight. Okay, so we got that dark on, we got that light on. Now I'm going to come back with that 1/4 inch angle. I might need to switch to my 3/8. We'll see. Tiny touch of white, sour apple on the toe only. Okay, work that in. And then opposite my dark center vein, I'm going to float on a highlight. Okay, so opposite side. See how I'm using my fingers? Don't be afraid to use your fingers. Softens it out. And I oftentimes will take my finger and swipe it at least at the top, sometimes at the bottom, or use the heel of that brush just to kind of soften it out. Okay. Typically it's my finger. And then I have to remember that I just stuck my brush in the whole paint. Huh?
Then you have to remember you used
Yes,
your finger.
then you have to remember that you used your finger for that green to not put it into something you don't want it, or itch your eye or something else. So, okay, sour apple, a little bit of white on the toe of that brush. Okay, so we've got a little bit of that highlight down. That one's really bad because it's dry. So I'm going to, okay, now let's bump the color up just a bit. So I'm going to take that neon yellow, just kind of work that in on the toe of that angle brush. And watch how this just bumps this color up. I'm going to set it down so that you can see it. Okay, see how, oh, I love that. And I need to switch to my 3/8 angle. A little bit of moisture. Some of that neon yellow on that highlighted side, just bumps up that really pretty sour apple, tiny touch of white, just brightens those leaves, brings them to life, I think. It might have been it might have been, not on the back of this, my hydrangea springtime wreath that I used the neons on the leaves. I don't remember. Okay, so I have it on those bigger leaves. Bring some out. There, there. This one just kind of lost its pretty highlight. A little bit of that. And because this is pretty transparent, it's just going to give a really pretty glow to the color underneath it. And again, one of the reasons I love to paint in layers. So you can do the same thing if you want to brighten up that vein that goes down the center on those bigger leaves. Okay, just like that. How's that looking on your screen, Miss Barb? Looking okay?
It is.
Because I can't see it. It's hard to see it when it's totally flat. Okay, so
Good.
I'm going to put a little bit of that neon yellow on these tiny baby leaves. Again, just a little touch on the toe of the angle brush only. Let's come up here. We are going to finish our leaves, base coat our daisies one more time, take care of our bee, and then we'll come back to our daisies. I tend to jump around. If I sit here and, you know, played with the daisies till they were completely done, it probably would be aggravated with them. And I find that jumping around and moving around gets me off of trying to do one thing. And especially if I'm trying to overdo one thing, which we tend to do sometimes if we stay on the same spot. So let's go ahead and get these base coated in again. I'm going to use my my number 4 or number 6 flat. And again, since I have those leaves done, I can go right over any of those petals, round them out a little bit more. Bring that right into the center. Push, pull, lift, push, pull, lift. This is a number 4 flat, and it's perfect for this size daisy to be able to just lightly push on the corner of the brush and paint that whole petal in. Starting at the tip, pushing, applying pressure, and as you near the center, lifting up and just sliding right into the center area. So one reason I don't do my centers till last. Okay, so don't forget, guys, we've got giveaways. All you got to do is comment, like, and share. I will draw the winners next Sunday on my next Sundays in the studio with me. And we're going to be painting a glass jar with hydrangeas. It's a lesson that I painted with my membership group. It's one of my favorite lessons that I've painted with my membership group. And we're going to be concentrating on painting glass and making it look transparent. And then very loose, impressionistic hydrangeas, which is one of my favorite flowers and one of my favorite flowers to paint.
E-packet available on the web.
Hmm?
E-packet is available for that?
It is not, but it will be this week. Thank you. Yep, the e-packet for that will be up on my website this week. Just got to finish writing it. It'd be nice to have someone standing as I'm painting it. Or just to record it while I'm painting it and then have somebody go back and write it for me. No, it's a labor of love. I do like to paint them. I don't really like to write them as much, but all part of what we do. Okay, again, push, pull, lift, push, pull, lift. Not putting a lot of pressure, but look how much more opaque they are just with that second layer of Americana titanium white. And like I said in the beginning, I'm doing very little to these because we're going to outline them. And that's going to help separate those petals more. Oops, too much paint. If you have too much paint, what's going to happen is it's going to ridge along the sides. And if you put too much pressure, that's where you get those ridges of paint along the left and right of your brush. So we don't want a bunch of paint. Turn it to fill that in. Okay.
And what paint will you be using for the hydrangea? It's not on a glass, it's on a canvas, right?
Yes, it's not on glass. It's on a wood panel, and it will be, I can't remember what I used when I painted that. I want to say maybe the fluid acrylics, but I will have a substitution list for Americana as well. Okay, just your regular colors, because not everybody has the fluid acrylics yet. Did you notice how I said yet? I'm going to hook you guys on them. They're the best. Okay, so we have our daisies repainted in. Now, let's take care of, I'm going to use that same number 4 brush, and I'm just going to lightly tap the corner right into my bee. Okay, I already painted his little sections black. And I'm going to just tap the corner. Paint his little sections in with white. Let's get out a little bit more black. You could use Payne's Gray too. Wow, that just was very not mixed.
I put a reminder up there that the e-pattern for this is on your website.
Okay.
And it came out, if you would like the spatters for this. Sorry.
That's quite all right. No, no one wants spatters. They just want... Okay, so I'm just coming back in with a liner. This is a 0... What is this one? A 0 round. I'm just going to come back in and clean up those sections. And I'm just dabbing. I'm dabbing the brush. Just dot, 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 dot. Okay, let's rinse that out. And I'll zoom into that bee so that you can see it even closer. There we go. And we have cadmium yellow out. I'm going to get out just a little bit of saffron yellow. Do you say any thank you for the brushes I have never won? Oh, you're so welcome, Connie. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Javine. What a pretty name. Okay. So now I'm going to take my, that same 0 round brush. You can use a liner brush. And I'm going to come in where I put the white, and I'm going to put the cad yellow. And just kind of dab, 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 dab. Looks better when you go dab, 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 when you say it out loud. Okay. And we'll rinse that. And we are going to loosely outline our bee as well. So I just rinsed out my brush. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of black. And just on these sections where there's yellow, just right around that, I stuck a little bit of black. For the legs, I use the Identipen, but you could always come back in. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. Okay, you could always come back in and do a little paint if you wanted to, but let me show you a really cool thing. So I have the 0 round. I'm going to rinse that out, pick up a tiny touch of Payne's Gray. And work that in. Oops, let's get down here so you can see. Tiny touch of Payne's Gray on a wet brush. Now I'm going to come below the leg and paint in. Let's get a little bit more paint there, a little more water. I'm going to paint in just like a little cast shadow for his leg, his antenna. So a little bit of a cast shadow. See how that, I love that. So like the light's hitting him, it's bouncing off his leg, and it's just casting a little shadow right there on our background. Okay, makes him look like he can almost get right up and take off. I'm gonna do the same thing right around those wings. More water, tiny touch of Payne's Gray. Get a little bit of that cast shadow. Okay, I want to bump that up even more. Okay, soften that out. Just like that. Thanks, my name is French. You pronounce it in the French way, Javine. Very pretty. Okay, now I want to come back to that number 4 flat. I'm going to keep water in my brush and pick up a little bit of white. So let me bring my palette over so that you can see. We want to make it slightly inky. Okay, so slightly inky. You could use a medium if you wanted to, if you don't want to use too much water. I just tapped it across my paper towel to get rid of excess. I'm making a huge mess down here with that wet daisy. And I'm going to paint that wash of inky white right over my wings. Right over the wings. Right over the line drawing, everything. It's going to kind of subdue those vein lines that we put in on the wings. Make them transparent. That's why I still put the honeycomb underneath it so that you can see everything through those wings, okay? Now, let's come back with our 1/4 inch angle, and on the toe of the brush, I'm gonna pick up a little bit of saffron. Just work that in on the toe of the brush only. And I'm going to put some of that saffron right along that left side of the yellow sections on the bee. Rinse that off. Come back to our 0 round brush. Pick up some of that inky white and then just a little bit more white paint so that we can come in and highlight. Oop, let's tap that off. I'm going to start on the yellow. Highlight. Then I'll come back up to the black. I just didn't want it to be too white up here. And then we're just going to highlight these sections. Keeping to that upper right, but leaving space between the body and that edge with our highlight. Okay, and then I'll come back with a little bit more white, or you can use the Japanese ink Signo, Uniball Signo pen. The thing with that, again, you have to set it. It's not permanent, so you can just take that 0 round with a little bit of white and just do a little highlight along the top of those wings. Just brighter. All right, let's move on to our flower. So I'm gonna come in with my 3/8 angle, but how pretty is our little bee? I think he's so cute. Let's zoom out and we'll take care of these down here first. This is quick and fast and don't think too much about it. It's just floating color on. I'm gonna use some cad yellow on the toe of my brush only. Let's come over here. Toe of my brush only, pick up some of that cad yellow. Work that in. Now, around the base of my petals, the toe is facing the center, and I'm kind of tapping it. I'm not lifting my brush up all the time. I'm doing a little bit of a, kind of like a zigzag. It's just going up and down, little back and forth so that I don't have just a halo line around my float of color. Okay, so, oh, that's saffron. Hello, I thought it looked bright. So cadmium yellow, we're just gonna float that right along the base of those petals. Let's do that for this one here. Okay. So right at the base. You could use whatever color you wanted. You could use a lime green, pink, blue. You know, you could do some Bahama blue. You can do some quinacridone magenta, some berry cobbler, you know, and make these daisies whatever color you wanted to at the base, but for that matter, whatever color you wanted to make your whole daisy. It does not have to be white. See how that's starting to spread out? I have no moisture in my brush. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more cad yellow on the toe of my brush. Just kind of float that on. Oop. Have a little bit of eraser in there. And by moving it this way, where I'm just, it's like a little shimmy. See how I'm moving that in my fingers? It's just a little shimmy of that brush. You can control how much you put on, can control how high it comes up, because you're just doing that soft, tiny little zigzag back and forth. Okay, so there we've got. Let's zoom out so I can get these others up here. And again, a little more moisture in my brush, get it to move. You can see there, the paint is only at the toe of the brush, slightly up. Little zigzag, float that color in. And if you don't have the neon yellow, you can use cad yellow or even the saffron to brighten those leaves up. Bump them up a notch if you wanted to. Try to keep my hand out of the way. Okay, And you could always come back. So once you get done, if you're like, oh, I have a total ring of yellow right around those, you can come back with a liner brush. I think I did my zero rigger, and you know, every now and then you can bring some little white streaks right down on those petals just to break up some of that yellow if you need to. But I'm pretty happy with those, so I'm going to leave them. And that's my #1 rule in painting, is if you like it, leave it. If you don't, we'll figure out a way to fix it. Okay. Now, centers. In the instructions, if you got the packet, you'll notice that I changed my mind. After I put in my centers, I decided that I was going to go dark and then go light. So, and then decided to go back. So, you know, just changed my mind all around. So we're going to come back with that, color with the plantation pine we want on our palette, and some Payne's gray, and then also some Hauser light green. Okay, so I'm going to come in and just tap in some Hauser light green. I'm just using the flat brush on the corner. I like that there's texture to it. If you don't want any texture, you can smooth it out, but I like that there's some texture to it.
Susan Malone says, love the hands being painted as you go. Same here.
Yes, and look, I always, always. What's funny, huh?
That's the rule.
Oh yeah. Well, what's funny is when I'm home and I am painting, I do tend to get paint on my fingers. I usually do not have it all up me or on me, but inevitably it's on every piece of clothing I own as well. That's just what I do. I go to the post office and they see me covered in paint. Okay. So that's pretty dry. So I'm just going to kind of hit it with the second little layer there. All right, let's dry that with the heat tool. Oh, those are cool. Let's go ahead and come in with our 3/8 angle. I'm going to get on the toe of my brush a little plantation pine, work that in, tiny touch of Payne's gray, just a tiny touch. Okay, now you want to know which way your daisies are going. So on the finished piece, you'll see that the shading for that center is right along that base, that bottom. Okay, so I'm going to have the toe facing down, and I'm just going to float in that color and softly bring it up. Float in that color, softly bring it up. Okay, so see the difference between those two and those three? Plantation pine, tiny touch of Payne's gray. A little bit on the toe of that brush only. And this one, it kind of looks like it's going a little this direction. So I'm just going to fix that. And then a little, this one looks like it's going this direction, right? So I'm going to go with it. I'm going to put that, float that color on a little bit more this direction. Okay, there we go. Now let's rinse that out, dry it off. And then I'm going to come over here with some sour apple, and I just want to bump the color up, make sure everything's dry, bump the color up on this top section. So I'm just going to float, see how that just brightened that up? Sour apple on the toe of my 3/8 angle brush only. I'm just going to float that right along that top. Okay, a little bit on that one. Alrighty, rinse that out. Love how you pat float in, less stressful and looks great. Thank you, Javine. I used to be where I had to pull it in one long thing, and if I do that, I tend to get it too dark. So I also really try to stress that don't stress over floating. It is one of those things that takes practice. The more you do it, the better you get. And I think a lot of times we're just super hard on ourselves and put too much pressure. So patting it in with just a little bit of color also allows me to come in and wipe it away if I want to. Like if it's just too dark, I didn't put that much on there. So now I'm just putting a tiny little U stroke. Okay, I'm gonna do that right here on my hand so that I can show you. These remind me of Priscilla Hauser. I don't know why, but this her centers. So watch here for a second. The toe of my brush is down, the heel is up. So I'm going to draw and pat in the shape of a U. Slightly bring it up a little. Okay, now see how it bleeds? See where it's darker there and it kind of gradates up in color? That's what we're going for. So it looks like you can stick your finger right in there. Okay, so plantation pine, little touch of Payne's gray. Small little U stroke. You can use the heel to soften it out if you need to, or you can use the mop brush. Okay. Now this is what I was talking about too with the center and the direction it's looking. So because my center direction's looking that way, my flower's looking that way, I should say, I wouldn't want to do my U exactly the way I did those. I'd want to turn it so that that U is facing and put in facing the direction of that flower. Okay? Like that. Alrighty, so now we're going to put in some dots. So we've got black, white, yellow. I'm going to use a stylus. You can use the end of a paintbrush, the handle of a paintbrush. I'm going to put in white. And what's funny is I used to never put in dots. Were you going to say something? Oh, I thought you were going to ask a question. And I went and I painted with the snowbirds up in Buffalo. And Judy Westgard, my friend Judy Westgard Jenkins, we were painting daisies on something, and she's like, I can't do a daisy without dots in it. And I'm like, oh, put dots in it. But I do think I love the way it looks. Tracy Moreau does it all the time. It just gives it a little bit of a finished look. Priscilla Hauser puts them in. It just takes some, I don't know, it's a little softer, whimsical, not so exact, a little more decorative painting. Okay, so I'm just going to dot in white, not too many. I think I went a little crazy on that first one. And when you do the dots, you do want fresh paint. If you're trying to dip into a paint that is, like I am right here, a big puddle that has a film over it, you're not going to get a really nice round dot on your stylus. Okay, so. So after maybe every 2-3 dots, you want to reload, because the more you dot, the smaller your dot's going to get as the paint comes off. Look how that just softens those up. Just makes them fun. And it also helps with that center. You know, if your center's not as oval as you want it to be, or you don't like the edge of it, you can come in and soften it up and give it a fun little touch with these dots. Okay, so again, just using a stylus. 2 or 3 dots, add more paint. Especially on a small stylus like this, by the time you get to dot 4 or 5, you have no paint left on your stylus. So, okay. Now, I did something right there that I don't like when they get right on each other. So you can go ahead and take that out, or you can separate it with another colored dot. Okay, so let's do some cad yellow. I'm gonna come up here and keep my hand out of the way. And you wanna do less dots. Okay, so I started with the white. I'm not gonna do as many yellow, and then I'm not gonna do as many black. And then we have to dry this. We're on the home stretch.
Good, because there's a thunderstorm coming.
Is there? Oh, goodness. Okay, so dot, dot, dot. And just like when you dab, 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 it looks better when you say dab, dab, dab. You can say dot, dot, dot. Okay, so see how I'm overlapping? Don't think about it. Just randomly put them on instead of going one there and one there and one there. Then it's going to look very uniformed and very exact. You want it to be whimsical. You want it to be random, not too precise, not too patterned. Okay, that needs another little white there. Okay, rinse that off. Okay, a little bit of black. Let's come up here. Again, try and keep my hand out of it. Okay, and again, not too tight. Let it kind of come out a little bit here and there, or onto that center. Just dot, 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 dot. And I have one right there, like I said. See how those two touch? So I'll come back and stick a white one right in between them, or a yellow one. And then we will have to let those dry. So while that's drying, we're going to move on to our lettering. I am going to hit it with the heat tool just to kind of tack it up a little bit. We'll do our lettering and then come back and outline with that pen, and then we will be done. Okay, just dot, 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 dot. And don't forget, if you want to have the line drawing and the step-by-step instructions, step-by-step pictures, you can find those right there on my website. Like I mentioned, I'll be back next Sunday too with a live, and then the week of the 17th. Got some really fun, exciting things planned here on my Sandy Mctier Designs page and on YouTube. And I will be doing quite a few lives that week. So I'm going to come back in with my 1/4 inch angle. I think I used, yes, I did use asphaltum, I think. And I'm going to shade right around those letters. Okay. So,
Let's see.
Might have used a little Payne's gray. Little Payne's gray in it as well, just to darken it up. But that's going to help those stand out a little bit more. So I just added a tiny touch of Payne's gray just because I wanted to bump that up. Again, float that color around. Don't worry if you get on the letter, that's why I'm doing it now. Okay, get a little bit of that shadow in. Payne's gray, actually asphaltum with the tiniest touch of Payne's gray. And I have a 1/4 inch angle, moisture in my brush so that it moves, so a little bit of water. And if you put this, if you put this in before you do your lettering will clean up some of that shading that you put on. So asphaltum, a little bit of Payne's gray. Okay, see how my paint's migrated through my whole brush? If it does that, you've got to rinse it out and start over. And it will do that more easily on your 1/4 inch angle than on your 3/8 or half. But I just had too much water, so it brought all that paint over.
Linda Martin said this would be nice on a tote bag. Would you convert to So Soft paints or use these colors with textile medium?
Oh, you know what? I'm a firm believer of using the product for the surface. So while you can use surface satin on fabric, you can use this with the textile medium. The So Soft paint is bar none the best fabric paint on the market. I would use So Soft and just use colors that coordinate.
Can you use the media acrylics?
You can use the media. Lana Lamb uses the media on fabric all the time, and it's beautiful because again, it's highly pigmented. I've only used So Soft, and then I've put some media over it. All right, my zero rigger, I have it loaded with black. I'm going to start at the tip, and I'm not putting any pressure. I'm just pulling the brush, and then where it's wider, I'm going to push the brush out a little bit. Okay, so you can get that wider push, pull to the tip. Push where it's wider. And then pull it to the tip. It's easier to pull a brush like this than to push a brush like this. That got very wide, Sandy. So we're just gonna go with it and make it a little wider. Okay, here, push. So when you do an E, think of it like a C first. Put that E on. Bring it around, tiny little section. Okay, so do the C first, then come and do your little section there. Okay, I'll get my hand in there. So apply pressure, pull, slide. Apply pressure, pull, and slide.
So are you using it flat now?
I'm only using it flat where the letter is wider. I'm using the tip only. So like this part, see how it's wide? I'm gonna touch, apply pressure, pull, slide to the tip. Then where it's thin, I'm only using the tip.
Amazing.
And oftentimes if I'm doing a section like this where I'm pushing, if I've reloaded my brush, it's fine. If I need to reload my brush to do these smaller areas, I will take it across my palette and get a little bit of that excess paint off. Because if I have a fresh loaded brush and I try to do these thinner lines, I just have a freshly loaded brush. So most likely I'm gonna have too much paint. So if I reload, go to a section where I can apply that pressure, slide on the tip only, apply pressure. And if you don't cover it in the first time, just come back, cover it in that second time. And then I'll come up here, pick up a little bit of that paint, right for that. Apply pressure, slide on the tip, reload the brush, apply pressure. It does help too if you can use your pinky to help anchor, okay? I do have mine a little anchored. Okay, so see, we can still see that shadow behind the words. If I wanted to, I could come in and highlight, with some white, but I'm not. I liked it just like this. But since I messed up that letter B, I need to fix it. So see how I've got a little bit of a hook right here? I'm just gonna bring this back from here and round that out just a little bit. Okay, let's dry that. Now, let's go ahead and splatter. Do I want to splatter before I do the lines? No, I want to do the lines. I'm going to show you this Japanese ink, this Uniball Signo pen. Of course, Tracy Murrow hooked me on these, and they are fabulous. I used to use the fine tip of the Identa pen, but I found that it's a little too thick. So let me zoom in so you can see this portion right here. A little bit more. Okay. So on the leaves, just very lightly go around them. You know what, Barb, go around the corner there for me on that and grab me another one of these black pens. I think this one's, well, it's working a little. Okay, so just loosely going around these leaves. And what I mean loose, I'm not going right on the line I can see. If I go beyond the leaf, that's fine. You can pull that vein in if you want. Give it a little bit of a wiggle. Okay, it should be on the far left in a black bin. Thank you. Okay, now you do want to make sure that your paint is completely dry before you do this, or you will mess up your pens, and I think that's obviously what I did with that one. Thank you. Just go shop in my own store. Okay, so.
Love her store.
And then, again, you can give it a little bit of a wiggle. See how I did there and just gave it a little double line? Okay, so we've done those and those. Now, I do want to do the little tendril thing, so I'll come back in and go around those. And then for the daisies, again, it does not have to go around just the petal. See how I'm being a little, it can go up, it can come down, go up. I can double it. Okay, that paint right there is a little wet. Hello. You want it to be completely dry. Now, see what I did there? This is a good learning lesson. This pen will move. It kind of skipped. It will move with water. You can also shade with it. See there? A little bit of water. Because it will move, you can float a little bit of that ink and shade with it. How cool is that? Okay. So, I almost stuck that liner brush in the cap. Okay, now around the base of the petals, I can come in and do these little squiggly lines. These are those things up close. It's going to be like, ooh, you know, pull it out, pull it back, hold it back, look at it, and it will be exactly the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so again, loose, right around those petals. Give it a little shake, little edge if you want to. I think this does a great job separating things, but I absolutely love these, little lines. So it's just, think of it like parentheses. You got one up, short, higher, shorter. Okay, and like I said, I could come in and take that angle brush or a liner brush and just come in and, float some of that ink, shade it a little bit with that ink. But again, I think that does enough for those compared to, look at those where there's no line drawing on them. So those leaves are done. Let's get this flower on. Now here, where my honeycomb, that petal goes right up underneath. You want to make sure that that line stays there for that honeycomb shape.
The pen is on your website, right?
The pen is on my website. Yep. I have the black, the white, and the red. You can buy them individually or you can buy them in the set, which is cheaper. And I do ship everywhere. I just shipped for the very first time ever. I shipped a parcel over to Scotland. But I do ship internationally. My website is crazy set up where it charges shipping per item. So if you want to know the exact shipping, you're more than welcome to email me what it is that you're going to order, and I can give you the exact shipping. But I always refund the amount minus packaging costs. I always refund the shipping overage cost that you might be charged. Right. So sometimes the texture in that paint is going to help that pen move and give you a little bit of a jagged edge. I love that. I leave it because I love it, and that's my number one rule. You like it, leave it. And I tend to start on that left side of the petal and push up, down, down. Push up so that your lines are uneven, sketchy. Okay, let's go back over to this one. Now, like I mentioned, because this ink is not permanent, I have found if you leave it for a few days, it actually is harder to wipe off, okay? But it's not 100% permanent. So if I go to put my favorite varnish on, which is soft touch varnish, if I go to brush on my varnish, this pen is going to react and move. So I should do the fine, no, I don't want to do it because I don't want to mess it up. But the fine tip of the Idena pen is still a little too thick, I find, for these little details. Okay?
Excuse me.
You're excused. Okay, so what I'll do is take it outside and spray it. This is gloss. I don't have the matte. It's on order. So don't use gloss. You want to spray it with a matte varnish, and that will set that pen in place so that it doesn't move on you. Okay? Let's zoom out just a little so that you can see how pretty. Alrighty. So let's take care of a couple things. We're going to splatter, do the edge, and we're going to be done. And wow, I thought we'd be done in an hour.
Ah.
3/8 angle brush. You knew better, right, Barb?
Yes.
My 3/8 angle brush on the toe only. You can see there on the side of the screen, I have a little bit of that Payne's Gray. So where, again, honeycomb meets the petal, especially like here, I'm going to float that right on top of that petal because that honeycomb's going to cast a little shadow on it. Let me see where else I might have where a little bit of that. Now I'm being careful because I don't want to mess up my pen, right? Underneath here on these petals because that goes right up underneath that honeycomb. But let me hold that up because see, I mean, I still have pen there. I'm just being super careful. Okay, and then floating just a little bit of color underneath these leaves where it meets the background. A little asphaltum, little Payne's Gray. Just will take some of that harshness away. The asphaltum will just kind of warm it up a little bit more, keeping with that background. So asphaltum, a little bit of Payne's Gray. Just float that in a couple places. Where things meet, just a little on that flower. Are you making notes for me, Barb? Okay.
Am I making notes?
I thought you were making a note for me.
I was checking off how to set.
Ah. So, little underneath these petals. I didn't go crazy. I didn't sit here and shade every place where I probably could. I just wanted it to lift here and there. We have that cast shadow underneath the RB that we did earlier. Any of these leaves that need a little something something. These still need to be outlined with the pen, which, you know, you can go and do. A little underneath our little leaves here. I could go crazy and just sit here and float all day. It's one of my favorite things to do, these shadows, especially cast shadows. Alrighty. So I think we are done there. Let me zoom out just a little bit more. Two things. Splatter. One of my favorite things to do. Soften the background, kind of lightens things up. And looking at this, I left that one pretty yellow, but I like it. Okay, so in the background, there's some white, and then there's also some Payne's gray. So I'm gonna take my number 8 flat, get it wet, load it up with white. Load it up with white, make it nice and inky. So let me show you my palette here. I pulled that white to the side, have water in my brush, and make it nice and inky. And then I want to splatter here and there, but not everywhere. So the handle of the brush, put it right over there. I don't want too much on the letters. I'll show you how to take that off. You can do the splatter before the letters too. Little there, maybe a little down here. Maybe a little there. All right, let that sit for a second. But wherever you don't want the paint, you have to take it off while it's wet. Okay, so if I don't want, I just rinsed my brush out. And I'm taking that off some of those letters. All right, now I'm gonna let this sit for a second. And take a paper towel because I wanna soften this. So I'm just going to lay it down, lightly touch it. That's going to give it a stained look versus heavy splatter. Okay, and then you also know, guys, you can get brushes on thebrushguys.com, and I have a promo code, so you'll get an additional discount if you use Sandy MC right there for black gold brushes. But I do have some that aren't on my site. Just message me and let me know. Okay, so see how that took that to a stained splattered look instead of really heavy dots sitting on top. Let's do the same thing with some Payne's gray. And I tend to splatter kind of in the same area. So I'm going to kind of splatter there, there. And again, wherever you don't want it, while it's wet, got to get it off. So I don't want it heavy on my my flowers. And look what I just did, because that ink, hello. I just got right into that. I'll just lift that up. Okay, now let it sit for a second or two. Touch. It's really noticeable with the darker color, kind of that stained splatter look instead of heavy. Just love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, let's hit that with the heat tool. And while that is drying, I'm going to, because it's going to aggravate me, going to make those a little bit whiter. Okay. Now, a lot of times around the edge, I will use the Stays On ink pad, brown, Payne's gray to frame in the whole piece. I just love the vignette look it gives. And so I'm going to take a baby wipe, wrap it around my index finger. I'm gonna pick up some white paint. Let me bring it to my palette here to show you. So I have white paint on the index finger, and I'm just going to run it back and forth. Okay, so this, you know, like if you have a photo editing app and you do a frosted look, this is kind of that frosted look. And I'm going to run that right along the edge. right along that edge and give that frosted look. Look how pretty that is, just with that top and side done, and this hasn't been done. It's super key and important that your wrist is on the inside of your surface. So that will keep from making a very strong line and just make it bleed. The wetness of that baby wipe is going to help that color go right along that edge, round that corner. Got a little too strong of a line right there. All right, so let's back out. I have a couple things I want to share with you real quick. You know, as we design and paint and come up with things, and I did the tag and used these colors and da-da-da-da-da. Well, let me put this side by side, because obviously at some point, even though I used the saffron yellow, I toned it down more. Can you see? Now I have to tell you, I'm pretty partial to the one that I did with saffron yellow. But you can come and tone this down if you want to with a wash of asphaltum. Okay? So before you do anything, once you get your line drawing on there and you've stenciled your piece, if you want to take down some of that saffron yellow, do a little wash of asphaltum over it. Okay, so depending on what coloring and what look you're going for. All right, but I have to say, I'm liking that one. I like the brighter. Just
the other is what?
Kind of happier. The other is the same exact thing. Saffron in the back.
And then
I did a wash of asphaltum to tone it down.
I like the bright one.
So personally like the bright. But that will give you two different, you know, kind of colorings if you want to go with this. You could even use a background like marigold, golden straw, something like that in the background. But you can't paint this and not be happy. Well, aren't you too cute, Susan? I think so too.
No more questions.
Love the brighter yellow. I love the brighter yellow too. Yeah. Yeah. Happy mistake there of forgetting that I put a wash of asphaltum on it. But it just goes to show you that you can change that and still have a great looking piece. Different background colors. Thank you guys so much. Okay, I'll be back next Sunday in the studio with Sandy. We're going to be painting glass, glass mason jar with hydrangeas, and have texture and really cool fun techniques and tips and tricks with that. And hopefully Barb will come back and moderate for me. And then be on the lookout. I'll be sharing more soon, again, the week of the 17th through, because my membership doors officially, I say officially, open the 22nd. They're open now if you want to go over there and look. Again, on my website, you can hit I hit it and nothing came up. You can click on the membership thing and read all about it and what we do, but we get together like this 3-4 times a month and paint and play and have fun and encourage and support each other. So would love to have you join us. You guys have a fantastic week. First full week of October. Get out those brushes, get out that paint something. Hopefully it'll be happy, but if not, paint something else and just, start slinging that paint in the studio, guys. All right? Have a fantastic week. See y'all later. Bye.